بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المخلوقات والمرسلين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. درسنا اليوم سيكون حول Communicative Competency Approach. Communicative competence was coined by Himes in 1972. Himes referred to it as that aspect which enables us to convey and interpret messages and to negotiate meanings interpersonally within a specific context.
Communicative competency approach becomes a significant concept in the second language acquisition, and it's still an appropriate term to capture the current trend in the process of teaching, as well as research.
In 1970, researchers on communicative competency distinguish between linguistics and communicative competency in order to summarize the difference between knowledge about language form and language which enables a person to communicate functionally and interactively.
In order to clear the image about this notion, James Kuhlman in 1979 and 1980 proposed a distinction between cognitive academic language proficiency, which is in short CALP, and basic interpersonal communicative skills, in short BICS or BACS. So let's give a definition for both of them. CALPS or cognitive academic language proficiency is what students use inside the classroom. For example, exercises and text which focuses on forms. And on the other hand, BICS or basic interpersonal communicative skills is the cognitive ability that all children acquire in order to function in their daily lives and their daily conversation exchange.
Kuhlman later in 1981 modifies his notion of cognitive academic language proficiency and basic interpersonal communicative skills in the form of context reduced, which is a good share of classroom and school-oriented language, and context embedded, which is face-to-face communication.
According to Canon's definition in 1983, communicative competence is made from 4 components or 4 subcategories. The first 2 subcategories reflect the use of the linguistic system itself, while the last 2 subcategories define the functional aspect of communication.
The first one is grammatical competence, which is the knowledge of lexical items, phonology, morphology, and the grammar semantic of sentences.
The second one is discourse competence, which is the ability that we have to connect sentences in a discourse. When I say discourse, I mean everything from a simple conversation to a lengthy written text.
The third one is sociolinguistics competency. It is the knowledge of sociocultural rules of a language and discourse. This type of competency requires an understanding of the social context.
The last one is strategy competence. It is the competence underlying our ability to make repairs. In another word, to cope with the imperfect knowledge and to sustain communication through paraphrasing, repetition, avoidance, and guessing.
In general, strategic competence is the way we manipulate language in order to meet communicative goals.
The general objective of the communicative competence approach are: first, knowing how to vary the use of a language.
Second, knowing how to vary the use of language according to the settings. Whom you are talking to. For example, when you are in an administration, you have to use formal language. It means to speak politely with people. In contrast, when you are with your friends, so you can use the informal language.
The last one is knowing how to use a language as a medium of cross-cultural communication.
To sum up, this approach can be preferable for the majority of teachers in Morocco because it helps students to develop not only the linguistics competence but also communicative skills.
Finally, this video was about the third approach in English didactics. So if you have any question about this approach or about the previous ones or about the theories, whatever, you can leave it as a comment below and we are ready to answer anywhere you want. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. درسنا اليوم سوف يكون حول المقاربة بالكفايات والتي تعني the competency based approach.
In this session we are going to discuss the following outlines: the history of competency based approach, the definition, the target and the objectives, the characteristics and the principles, the role of the teacher, and the kind of assessment applied in this approach.
The reform of teacher training and vocational education helped to establish the general form of competency-based approach in 1960s and 1970s. After that, the competency-based approach has been integrated in the US High Educational Program.
Concerning the definition of competency-based approach, it is a combination of skills, knowledge, experiences, understanding, and the ability to perform in the real life. The main key word here is competency, which is capability to apply and use knowledge required to successfully perform a work function or task.
One of the main objectives of this approach is performance and task. That is to say, it gives the students the ability to demonstrate competency in a variety of ways. However, the general target of this approach is to prepare the students for the challenge of the future and empower them with knowledge and skills in various fields of studying in a flexible educational program.
The significant characteristics of this approach are: firstly, the learner is the core of the process of learning. According to this approach, the learner acquires language autonomously and collaboratively. Secondly, learning based on task. Thirdly, performance, which means what can learners do with their English.
Moving to the role of the teacher according to this approach. So, first, the teacher should create the conditions that are conducive to the development of the communication competency. Second, to manage the classroom event. Third, to provide immediate feedback to the students. The last one is to monitor language output competency development.
So, what about the role of learners in this approach? The learner should learn cooperatively, and he should be more self-directed and responsible for their learning. And they should be on the outlook for effective skills and strategy.
So let's talk about assessment in relation to this approach. So here assessment is two types. First one is continuous and ongoing assessment, which is integrated in the learning process. Secondly, criterion referenced assessment, which has relation with the results that the students get. For example, the marks and the treat.
To sum up, this approach is adapted to the secondary schools. 9th grade student. It aims at mastering one skill and moving to another.
Finally, this lesson was about the competency-based approach. So, if you didn't understand anything or if you have any kind of questions, don't hesitate to leave it as a comment below. Thanks for watching and see you next video with a new approach. Hello everybody, hope all of you are doing great. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. في هذا الفيديو سوف نقوم بشرح المقاربة الرابعة وهي المقاربة بالمضامين. The content-based approach. So after we've done with the three other approaches, which are the standard-based approach, competency approach, and the communicative competency approach, now it's time to explain the content-based approach. So if you haven't watched the previous approaches, the previous theories, you can go back to the didactic list in this channel and you will find all of them. So let's get started. So, the content-based approach, from the name we can understand that it focuses or it rests on the content. That is to say, it states that students acquire a language through learning about different topics. To explain more, students learn about, for example, history, philosophy, politics, technology, and they get the terminology of these topics so that they can use them in their daily lives. That's how they can acquire a language.
In addition to this, it relates teaching academic content with learning a new language. In other words, the learners use language for real communication and for real purposes through exchanging information.
For further explanation, in this approach, a language becomes just a medium through which something new is learned.
Concerning the history or the background of this approach, St. Augustine is the famous advocate of this notion of studying academic concepts in a second language in 1980.
However, the focus of this approach is on topics and subject matters. That is to say, students learn about some interesting themes which may hold and catch their attention during the lesson, such as favorite pop stars, serious sciences, movies, and films. They learn about these topics using the language they are trying to learn.
So, how can teachers apply this approach in a classroom? Here, teachers have to choose a subject of interest to students, or find 3 or 4 suitable sources that deal with different aspects of the subject. This could be a website, a reference book, or an audio or video.
What about its application inside the classroom or during the lesson? In this situation, the teacher can divide the class into small groups and assign each group with a task. Then he can give them some kind of source so as to help them in their research, and when they finish, they can share their work with each other so as to benefit more from their mistakes.
Coming to some advantages of content-based approach or content-based instruction. Firstly, it makes learning more interesting and motivating. That is to say, students can use language to fulfill real purposes.
This approach is well known among the EAP, which is English for Academic Purposes. It helps students to develop valuable study skills, such as summarizing and extracting key information from the text.
As we have just mentioned the positive side of this approach, let's move to the negative one. In this approach, it can be hard to find information sources and text that lower levels can understand.
The second disadvantage is that students may copy directly from the source text that they use to get their information.
To sum up, content-based approach or content-based instruction can be very stimulating and rewarding because it helps students both in terms of finding a source of information and having the support of others so as to evaluate their work.
Finally, this video was about the fourth approach in English didactic, which is the content-based approach. So, if you didn't understand anything or if you have any kind of question concerning the previous lessons, you can ask it in a comment and we are ready to answer. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Hello everybody, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Our lesson for today is going to be about the standard-based approach.
The standard-based approach was developed by the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Language in 1990.
The standard-based approach addressed what students should know and be able to do, and demonstrate what they learn at the end of the process of language learning.
In other words, it works on what learners should know and be able to do with English. Moreover, it focuses on communication with its different types, written and spoken communication. Ultimately, it connects English with other subjects like philosophy, geography, and Arabic.
There are three types of standards that you should know. The first one is content standards. This kind of standards depends on what students should know, which means the question here is only with what, which is about the content.
The second one is performance standards. It shows how the student achieved the standard target.
The third standard is called proficiency standard. It is called proficiency standard because it tells us how learner should perform.
Standard-based approach is concerned with developing the following 5 areas, which are called 5C. They are called 5C because all these words are starting with the letter C.
The first area is communication. Here, learner will communicate in both oral and written forms. Understand and interpret both oral and written messages to various audiences for a variety of purposes. The three modes of communication are interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational communication.
The second one is culture. Learners gain deep understanding of their cultures and the target cultures in terms of their perspectives, ideas, attitude, practice, and product like films, music, and theater.
The third one is connection. Here, students make connection, or they can use English to make connection between other areas like philosophy, geography, physics, Arabic, and so on.
The fourth one is comparison. The learners gain awareness of cross-cultural similarities and differences in culture that exist in the target culture and language and their own through comparing.
The last one is communities. Here the learner extends the learning experience from the inside world, which is the AFL, English as a foreign language, to the outside world, which is learning by using other medias like using the internet and whatever else.
Did we forget something?
Yes, of course.
What is it?
We didn't mention how can teachers apply this approach in classroom.
Teachers have to create a classroom climate which is characterized by respectful behaviors and routines.
The teacher should also ensure that all the components of the lesson, such as activities and assessments, contribute to the objective of the lesson and to the students' mastery of the standard.
To sum up, according to English guidelines of teaching foreign language in Morocco, this approach is adopted for the secondary schools, the Common Core, the first year and the second year baccalaureate.
Finally, if you have any kind of questions or criticism, don't hesitate to leave it as a comment below and we are ready to answer any kind of questions. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video with the new approach.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المخلوقات والمرسلين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In this video we are going to discuss the last approach, which is the eclectic approach. Let's start with the definition of eclectic approach. So, eclectic approach is a combination of different methods of learning and teaching approaches.
In this approach, the teacher has more flexibility and adaptability to choose the best elements according to the needs and aims of the students.
Thus, different methods of teaching are borrowed and adapted to suit and satisfy the requirements of the learners. That is why it is regarded as the third important approach in the Moroccan context.
In the eclectic approach, the teacher can choose from these different methods and approaches, which are the direct method, grammar translation method, audiolingual method, and communicative language method. That is to say, when the teacher is explaining grammar and teaching grammar and rules, he should use the grammar translation method because it helps students to memorize the rules quickly. And when he is teaching communication, reading, skills and whatever else, it's better to choose the audiolingual method while reading and the communicative language approach while speaking and communicating, and the direct method while teaching skills and communication.
Here are some of the characteristics and principles of the eclectic approach. Firstly, it gives a chance to the teacher to select different teaching techniques in each period to reach or to achieve the target of the lesson. Secondly, it saves a lot of time in presenting language activities.
What about the advantages of this approach? So, firstly, it offers multiple opportunities to the students to develop their own skills. Secondly, the learners become attentive and responsive. Thirdly, it breaks the monotony, which is the routine of the class, and it allows the students to discuss more freely inside this class.
Each approach has its weaknesses and strengths. So, let us talk about some weaknesses of this approach. First of all, it is time consuming. That is to say, teachers may be confused which method they can use to achieve their target. Secondly, it is not useful for the lower level students. Thirdly, if the teacher doesn't master all the methods, so he may lead students to be confused and at the same time demotivated.
To sum up, most of the teachers are using this approach to create a variety of interest in the learning program and tailor the program according to the students. Finally, this video was about the last approach in the English didactic, which is the eclectic approach, and up till now in this list we've dealt with all the theories, methods and approaches, and wait for the new coming lessons. Thanks for watching and see you the next video with a new lesson.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المخلوقات والمرسلين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. درسنا اليوم سيكون في علم الديداكتيك حول الطريقة المسماة The Silent Way.
The Silent Way was introduced by Khalid Gatengo in his book Teaching Foreign Languages in School in 1963. It is based on the premise that the teacher should be silent as much as possible, while the learner is encouraged to be active in classroom.
This method is derived from the principles of constructivism. That is to say, the process of learning is facilitated if learners discover and create rather than remember and imitate what they learn.
According to the Silent Way, the process of learning is facilitated through many ways. Firstly, the mediating physical objects can facilitate the process of learning.
Secondly, Learning is facilitated by problem solving, involving materials which make the process of learning seems to be easy.
Thirdly, the learner, according to this method, is a principal actor rather than a bench-bound or a passive listener.
We can present these assumptions in the words of Benjamin Franklin. Tell me and I forger. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. So here we note the importance of involvement as a useful technique of learning faster and remembering more.
In addition to what we have just stated before, silence as avoidance to repetition is an aid to the mental organization. You might be confused here, but the teacher in this situation should create an environment in which the students interact with themselves as well as with the teacher. That is to say, here the teacher should ask more questions than giving the answers. So he should put a question and then discuss it with the students in order to help them organize their ideas and analyze them.
In this method, learners are expected to develop independence, autonomy, and responsibility.
However, the teachers here should use charts, gestures, colored roads, color-coded pronunciation in order to elicit and shape knowledge.
This method focuses on the idea that students talk more than the teacher in the process of learning and teaching.
It also requires students to take active ownership of their own learning, and it considers students' errors as natural.
Finally, if you have any kind of question or criticism, don't hesitate to leave it as a comment below.
However, if you want us to discuss some other topics in didactics or in English grammar, just tell us in the comments and we will discuss it as clearly and as concisely as possible. Thanks for watching and see you the next video.